Yeah. And by the way, that's what you want to start to hear, but we need to hear most, I would say like you need to hear 90% of people saying that, not just about 10. Right now it's 10, maybe 15%. You need to see that switch totally to the opposite spectrum, and then you'll start to see a bottom, because that's what you saw in 2018. I still remember vividly in 2017 when it was a massive bull market. CNBC had the Bitcoin ticker on the bottom of their screen all the time, and they always talked about Bitcoin. And then once the collapse happened, all of a sudden, like in mid 2018, it vanished. And they didn't even talk about Bitcoin. It was like, we're not even going to mention it. And that was the signal, that bearishness that no one wanted to even talk about it. That was the signal that it was starting to become a viable option. So for me, it's looking at what Bitcoin represents. It represents a different monetary structure where you have a limited amount that can be ever mined versus the US dollar versus all the currencies of the globe, where governments can just print and print and print. And I think that's the bottom line. It's also that the adoption has started. You have major players out there. You have institutions starting to get involved. You have people starting to accept it as a form of kind of digital gold. Still has a long way to go to get there. But again, these are the things that I think the general world are yearning for. They're yearning for something where if the governments continue to print, and even though the governments have stopped for now, I truly believe they will start again as soon as we get into a bad recession. There's a need for a place to store your money where it doesn't get diluted, and you know that there's a maximum run on it.
Now, a lot of the people in our community really look to hard assets, for example, gold and silver, to be that protection in tough times and in times of what we're seeing right now of inflation, as we're seeing the value of the dollar really disappear. Now, your perspective on that it seems like a lot of people point out that Bitcoin isn't tangible in that same way that precious metals are. Your perspective on that, why do you have confidence that it is going to be seen as kind of a safe haven in these times?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I mean, gold, I'm a huge fan of gold too, but I do think that gold, so I bought physical gold, I bought physical silver. Once you buy physical gold and silver, it's a little on the harder side to move it quickly. Like if you go to a pawn shop, they're going to give you a discount of like 20-30% on it. If you go and sell it on, back to a gold dealer, they're going to give you 10% less at least of the value. And again, carrying around a bag full of gold isn't exactly the easiest thing to do, right? So I think that there's a need for a digitalized, asset that is very easy to move. And if you talk to people in Venezuela or in different areas of the world where their countries are seeing, hundreds of percentage of inflation per year, there's really a need for that. And then there's also a need for people to be able to send payments instantaneously for very minimal amounts of cost overseas to different, like let's say you have a family member that needs help in some country. Very quickly you send these cryptocurrency payments. So there's a lot of use cases for these types of things, and also just the fact that physical gold itself is a little bit of a harder thing to move, I think makes people say, okay, we need something different here that will work, that has a stated run. And remember, people say, well, the dollar's the dollar. Well, the dollar is the dollar. The only thing it's backed by is the government, which continues to basically spend, and will ultimately have to spend more and more down the line. And you have a Federal Reserve who's printing more dollars constantly, obviously not right now, but they will go back to it. So you have to have an asset that has this kind of
to the many governments around the world rolling out their own cryptocurrencies, and the US is one of them that looks like they might do it sometime soon in the next year or couple of years. Do you see that as any competition to more decentralized cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin?
I don't see it as much, and the main reason is, always remember this: if the government is issuing any cryptocurrency, and basically it's a digitalized dollar or the digital yuan, right? We know that China's come out with that, is that they still have control to click a button. In fact, it's easier probably for them to just click a button and create another billion or trillion or quadrillion. So they're, you get the same kind of verbiage, digital currency, cryptocurrency, but really it's just as if it's numbers on a computer screen. It's the same thing. And so I think that for the most part, as people learn more and more about these digitalized currencies like the digital dollar, it's not really anything different than what we have now. It's probably just a little bit easier for them to print more of it.
Very good points there. And I did want to turn now to what we are seeing. We've been seeing a crash, obviously, in Bitcoin, but we're also seeing quite a bit of a pullback in other markets. If we look at the stock market from year to date, it's down about 20%.